Welcome back to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon, and today we are joined by Jill Romig. Now, Jill is passionate about helping women make peace with their pasts, step into their own, and become more confident and comfortable in their skin through her Living Boldly coaching program. At 53, she finally figured a few things out and is excited to share what she's learned with other women that struggle with aging, fitness, nutrition, intimacy, and fashion. Now, even though she's an accomplished CPA and has also been a fitness instructor for 25 years, for many years she struggled with her weight, her self-image, her self-worth, and self-esteem. It wasn't until her mid-40s that she finally made a shift that changed everything: her attitude, her awareness, her life, and her relationship with both her husband and her daughter. She started learning more about the law of attraction, vibrations, source energy, positive affirmations, and immersed herself into self-help learning with the goal of becoming the best version of herself possible. She applied everything she learned from her personal life experiences, fitness training and teachings, self-help studies, and love of fashion into her Living Boldly program to help women struggling with aging reclaim their purpose, re-energize their bodies, revamp their style, and realign their souls. Now, during the interview, we discuss healing from the past, her experience with eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This is also known as EMDR. And we discussed that in the beginning. Neither one of us knows what it is. I had to look it up. But she knows what it is, but I'm talking about the acronym. We didn't know what that was. So I looked that up. And how to speak to ourselves, how important how we speak to ourselves is, and how the book, The Four Agreements, changed her life. Introverts and extroverts, how our thoughts create our reality, what fear is, why failure is a door to possibility, the importance of affirmations done the right way in success, and finding God. Now, at the end of the episode, make sure you visit drmichellegordon.com/podcasts, PODCASTS, don't forget the S, where you can find the show notes, plus the links to the books and resources mentioned in the episode. And Jill has a powerful free download for you that we'll hook up there as well. Now, we also have a special offer to the Menopause Movement membership only for podcast listeners. And when you join the Menopause Movement membership today, because you're a podcast listener, we will give you the Meno system absolutely free. It's a $1,500 value, and that's a special transformational experience that will help you change the way you view menopause. So don't miss out on that. Now, if you enjoy the episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you are always the first to know when each episode is released. And thank you for all of the 5-star reviews. We really appreciate them. Now, if you have any questions about the topics we covered in this or any other podcast, I invite you to open a conversation with me on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Gordon. I promise I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now, let's get on to the interview with Jill. And thanks for being a part of the Menopause Movement. All right, Jill, well, welcome to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Happy to be
So,
here.
Jill, I see that you like to help women heal from their past. Can you just talk a little bit about what you got, what got you into that and how you got started there and what your story is?
Basically, like we all have our life that we live, and lots of times we just move on. I've always been that person that just moved on and just said, the past is the past. But I never really dealt with it, and it would show up in my life. It would show up in my marriage. It would show up everywhere. And I would overreact in things, and it didn't dawn on me that I was overreacting. I was very justified in my behavior and the way things were going. And I didn't really realize how I was affecting other people or the relationships I was in. And it took a long time for me to get to the place where I realized that there's something to it and I needed to move through it. And once I did, on the other side, my life is a whole lot better. But it took some time. It took some therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with EMDR, but a little bit.
Now, what does that stand for?
I was afraid you were going to ask me. I'm so bad. It's desensitization.
Desensitization.
Yes. EM movement. Eye movement. EMDR. rapid eye, what it is. I can tell you what it is. I don't know
Okay,
exactly what it is. It's
that's fine.
bilateral movement of your brain. So when you're going, you process memories that you have like a certain opinion or thought about what these memories are. And it's bilateral movement where either you're holding something in each hand and it processes through your brain, or it's a light that you're following, headphones where some noise is here, then here. So it's going back and forth, back and forth. Anyway, it's a process, and there's such a story to this that I don't know if you want to hear the whole story, but
Let's hear this. Just start at the beginning. It's fine.
okay.
If you're comfortable sharing,
Yeah, I mean, because it really did. That's the beginning of my metamorphosis, really. Like,
oh, my hair is everywhere. Okay. No, you look great.
Thank you. The hat always helps. When I have a bad hair day, I throw on a hat.
Okay, so before we get into the EMDR story, I want to get behind why it is. I've never seen you without a hat. I mean, I have seen you every time I've seen you, and we
not
go to
necessarily
the same conferences,
right?
No, you're always wearing a different hat. I mean, I love hats, and I bought some hats very similar to the kind you wear when I was in Barcelona a few years ago, and I like them, but I'm not like, I'm not as fashion conscious, I think, as you are, and I know that's part of your thing is helping people with fashion. I mean, look at me, I'm a surgeon, I'm wearing scrubs, so. Yeah. So can you just let's start with that. Let's start with like, how did you get into hats?
Hats, I don't know. It's just like been in I don't know. It's something I've always loved. Like my husband's like, could we go out without the hat? Like, is it possible we could go out without the hat? But he does appreciate unless we wear whatever I want. Of course he does. But sometimes I want to wear my hair up, or he's like, he just loves my hair down. He loves my hair, my forehead. He just likes to look at me. But I like a hat.
It's a good thing you have a husband who likes to look at you. That's a plus.
It's definitely a plus. And I put that man through hell. And that is what changed after the just segueing back into the story, because I really do think it's beneficial. When we first moved to California, we were empty nesters. He had lost his job, actually. The economy had tanked around 2009. Right. And so he was without work. And during that time, we actually took a hiatus and took off on a boat for 4 months. And unfortunately, like financially, we were set. We had just paid off debt. Like we weren't having financial problems, so he could take the time to figure out what he wanted to do. But, there was a lot to be grateful for. But at that time in my life, I was pretty much coasting. Like I had the job, I had a good husband, but I wasn't like happy, and I wasn't really like enjoying my life. And so this was the first start where we spent 4 solid months together, me, him, and our dog, on a boat every single night. Went down from North Carolina to, ended up in the Bahamas, and then worked our way back over a 4-month period of time where we spent a lot of time together. And a lot of that time was just reading or, just being sometimes just silent or whatever. And I'm always like a talkative, I'm a very active, very social, very extroverted person. And so this was the first time I was really like, isolated really from the world, more or less. I mean, we were traveling, we were in Florida. We did do some things in Florida, but anyway, this was a time for us to get to know each other better. It was when I realized I didn't know him as well as I needed to know him. And it's when things started changing for me and for us. And things got worse before they got better. Let me just put that out there. So then in 2011, we moved to California. I've been teaching fitness all my life. One of my mentors in fitness is Chalene Johnson. I didn't know she actually lived in California. I didn't know she actually taught in gyms in California. So I started going to her classes. And so she had this seminar called Push, and I went to it. Well, actually, she got my husband there because at class in the morning, it's like, oh, I'm going to get to go to your seminar. And she's like, is your husband coming? I'm like, no, he's not going to come. She's like, if you get him to come, I will comp his ticket, And it's like, I don't know, $400, $500 ticket. So I was like, okay, honey, you need to come to this event with me. And he's like, oh, okay. And during the event, she had EMDR specialists come up and speak. But before that event, she had all these traumas that she had put up on the board. And when I saw them, it was like, oh, wow, like all but 4 or 5 of them had happened in my lifetime. And I knew my husband knew some of those things about me, but he didn't know like all of those things about me. And the things that so then Michaela came up, the EMDR specialist, and she started saying examples of scenarios of things that could happen. And then the person like responding and overreacting. And literally Todd and I looked at each other and were like, has she been in our living room? Like, has she seen us? Because it was like a scenario that was totally us where he'd say something and it would trigger. What it was a trigger, and I would overreact, and things just got really heated, and my response really didn't like match the situation at all. So that was the start of it. That's when he looked at me. We had some kind of counseling before, but not like serious counseling, like went to like a church event kind of thing where it was different, like a weekend to remember kind of thing, where that kind of thing lasts a month and then you go back into your normal habits. Anyway,
Yeah.
I feel like going on and on, but this is a good thing, because when he saw that, he looked at me, he's like, maybe this is something we should look into. And then I started seeing that particular doctor, Dr. Michaela Sarno, who is amazing. And then
What kind of doctor is she?
She's an EMDR specialist, and she's had all the other kind of training for that, but she focuses mostly on EMDR. And what I guess
is she a PhD or is she a chiropractor?
So she's not a PhD. I don't know. You can't be called doctor if you're not a PhD.
Well, you have to have a doctorate in something. So you can need a PhD, or you have some sort of a doctoral degree, like a chiropractic degree, or there are nurses now that have doctorates.
She has her doctors. I'm not sure what it's in.
She's
not prescribing
medicine. I just to clarify for the audience, EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So that is where it looks like what is done is they'll do whatever the trauma is, and then they'll figure out what's going on with your eye movement, and then they'll desensitize you. And in a lot of ways, I think it's probably very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy, where you get desensitized. CBT is really a lot of desensitization to some sort of a stimulus that will create a response that is usually like an OCD type response or some other destructive behavior. So I think that's kind of very similar. I'm not familiar with this therapy. I just looked it up real quick, but I'm expecting that that's what it is.
Every time I hear that, I'm like, yes, that's what it is. I don't know why I can't remember it, but it
doesn't matter.
Technically, whatever. But what I know is that it got me started on the process of starting to think about where my thoughts are. And that is really the biggest thing that I got out of that, was starting to realize that how I'm reacting or feeling or behaving isn't ever really what the person's done or said or anything that's happened. It's all in my head and how I respond to it. And that's training.
So this is so important. This is so important. In my program, the Menopause System, and in the Menopause Movement membership, we spend a lot of time talking about the stories we tell ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And mindset really comes down to what is the story that we are telling ourselves. More than anything else, across the board, if I tell myself that you hate me because I'm wearing scrubs and you like to wear this matching outfit of a pink hat and sweater, then we're going to have tension, because this is the story that I've told myself, regardless of whether it's true. And I think it's really important to pay attention to how we're telling ourselves stories and what those stories actually mean and whether they're valid. And I've just had a coaching session with my members where I was talking about stories, and are those stories real, and how is the story that you're telling yourself about the other person affecting your relationship with the other person? And so I think for the people who are paying attention to the podcast today, really look at how you talk to yourself. I mean, the first 3 weeks of my program, the Menopause System, is paying attention to how you talk to yourself and just writing things down and paying attention, because what we don't realize is that we have a bully inside our heads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you go into your brain, there's all these different compartments. I was just listening to something from Brooke Castillo, and it's like, you have your judgmental section, you have your bully, you have your positive person, you have your plans, and there's all these areas in your brain that if you don't start cleaning it out and organizing and decluttering inside and what's going on, you're constantly going to be feeding yourself negative things. It's unfortunately our primitive brain really wants to work towards whatever's easy, even if it's uncomfortable, if it's familiar, it's where we want to stay. And challenging that and using that your cortex, the part of your
prefrontal cortex. That's the most evolutionarily advanced part of our brain. Yeah.
Right. And that's the area you want to really work with so that you can balance those things.
But you also want to give your subconscious mind a job. Because your beliefs, because your beliefs they're gonna create your future, right? And I like talking about the fact that I'm a doctor because of a statement my mom made when I was 5 years old, and I made a decision when I was 5. And I just recently discovered this. This was like back when James Wedmore was talking about the new year, and he put us through this whole. If you remember it, there was a whole visualization about
at next level.
It was the next level. And it was all about how, why haven't you been successful as successful as you want up till now? And so I had this memory of my mother saying that my uncles were rich because they were doctors. And so at that moment, my little 5-year-old brain said, I have to be a doctor. I won't be able to make money. Mm-hmm. And that decision, that belief served me. I mean, my subconscious mind took me from, I was a music major, to taking one class in trigonometry and high scoring that class, to going into science, to one of the most difficult colleges in the country called Harvey Mudd, to then medical school. Wow. And I know, and it's just because
some don't,
whether it served me or not, it doesn't, I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether it served me or not. I mean, it's what happened. But the point I'm trying to say is that beliefs that we are being programmed from such a young age that we're not paying attention to, if we don't pay attention to how we're speaking to ourselves and what the beliefs are that are driving our current actions. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think this is so key. And especially when, one of the things you like to teach is, law of attraction and, getting in touch with source energy. And when we start to really pay attention to those things,
mm-hmm. It's amazing what.
Yeah. But you have to do all that deep work. You have to do the work of really looking at yourself. You have to take the microscope and turn it the other way. Mm-hmm. And it can be painful.
And challenging, but to be able to do that, become aware, to step away, to like my husband, if he was on here, he would be the first one to say like how different I am now. Like EMDR started the process for me. And then, it was like a series of like reading the 4 agreements, just like understanding the difference between my perspective and other people's perspective. That was huge. For me. And then being able to realize that just because I think it's true doesn't mean it's true. And just because you think it's true doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
To me, it's not necessarily true to you. And it's just all those little things that add up and really can change your life once you realize, like, even just like my little bit of nervousness that I was about coming on this podcast, for me was something I was typing back to you going, because I was getting scared, not knowing what we were going to talk about. And I'm like, Jill, this is what you need to get over, like, let's work through this. And then I told my husband this morning, and he's like, when I was telling him that part, I could hear him like, you didn't cancel it, did you? I'm like, no, I did not cancel. And
good job.
Yeah, he was very proud.
Well, I like to tell people that the magic happens when we are right on that border of being stretched right at the edge of our comfort zone. And James Wedmore talks about the box. We learned about that. And for anybody who follows me and also follows James Wedmore, he spoke about, how, we live inside of a box. And once we get outside that box, that's where all of the change can happen. And when you become a little bit more self-aware, you start to realize that. And you were talking, I just wanted to mention for one second, you were talking about how we have to, compartmentalize or understand how there's a bully and how there's this, there's that. I think the best book I've ever read about the voice inside our heads comes from Michael Singer. And it's called The Untethered Soul. And I've recommended that book. I've talked to a few people on the podcast about that book. And so we recommend it over and over. It's one of the biggest life-changing books that I think we can recommend. Although the first time I read that book, none of it sunk in. And I recently went through a book group, and we went through, there's four parts to that book. And so we went through the four parts, and I just had it on repeat as I was running. I would do the first, 5 chapters or whatever we were focusing on for that book group. And it started all to sink in about what is that voice, and why does it take both sides, and who are we, in relation to that voice. And the best like epiphany for me was that is not who I am. I'm the one who sees the voice. I'm the one who hears the voice. I am not that voice.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
oh, I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then when you start to do that, you start, like I'm a doctor, I'm a scientist, and now I'm in the woo.
I know. Well, as a CPA in the woo, it's like not everybody's like, I'm not your average CPA. First of all,
Right. Okay.
Talk about that, but yes.
Yeah. So let's talk. So before we get to that, I wanted to hear, you said something about this book, The Four Agreements. I don't know what that is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Don Miguel Ruiz is the author. I have done the Audible, and the author is the guy that reads it he's got a great voice, which makes it even better. Peter, I think his name's Peter, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that.
It's okay, doesn't matter.
But anyway, it is about the 4 agreements, which are: 1, be impeccable with your word, like do what you say what you mean, be clear. And then how each word is an agreement, like what those things mean. But then the second, I don't know if it's second or third and second that I'm saying as far as order goes, but it's don't make assumptions and don't take things personal. And that's where most people go wrong. They make an assumption that it's about them, like, and 99.9% times, whatever somebody else does has absolutely nothing to do with you, but you make it personal, and you assume what they mean, and then you have all this anxiety and tension and miscommunications. And then the last one is just do your best. So if you keep those 4 agreements with yourself, it's just a way to live and not let other people control you. You have control of yourself.
Yeah. It's really funny. I read a book by Jack Canfield a long time ago called The Success Principles. Mm-hmm. And that book changed my life. And I think it was like in 2010 or something, I read that book, and it changed my life in the way that, nobody else is thinking about you, right? Nobody's talking about you. Nobody's thinking about you. I mean, we are essentially narcissistic creatures. We only think about ourselves. And so when something, somebody says something, like I say, well, that's a pink hat. And you're like, well, what do you mean by that? And it comes back to, like, what is the story? And we go back, everything comes back to story. What is the story that I'm telling myself about this? Because all we can see through is the filter that we see through, right? And we only see through our me filter. And one of the exercises I teach in my membership, which I got from my mentor, Sri Kumar Rao, is called the Other-Centered Universe. And
again, I heard you say that before.
Sri Kumar Rao. Yeah, he's my mentor. Okay. And we do in the membership, we talk about the other-centered universe and how you take a piece of your day and you just stop focusing on yourself. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's a great exercise.
Is it like a long period of time?
It depends on how you want to do it. You can break it up. I mean, when you join my membership, you learn all about it. So yeah. So we don't want to give too much away right now, but we do talk about it.
That's interesting. I know Jim Fortin does something like where he makes his students, I don't know how it sounds, I vaguely remember, it's like a real, like in 2 hours where they have to just sit and not do anything. And a lot of them just have a really hard time doing that. But
yeah,
it's just the commitment to just unwind, unplug, and not, and then just bring your attention back, like, because you're going to wander. Your mind is going to wander. It's normal, but just bringing your attention back. And that's how I learned how to meditate too. It's like small increments, and just because my mind is busy. And so I just need to, once it goes off on a banter, and then I'm like, oh shoot.
Yeah, you know, there's a really great book that you might want to read. It's called True Meditation by Adyashanti. And we're
Mhm.
going to hook up all of the books that we mentioned in the show notes. So for anybody who's interested in growing in this way, you can go get the Four Agreements and Michael Singer's book and the Adyashanti book. But True Meditation is great. And I actually, this is the next book that we've put in our book group, and we were
Oh,
just talking about it. But the main thing is to, you know, one of the things that happens in meditation is that we tend to try to manipulate the experience. And Adyashanti teaches this, you know, true meditation is no manipulation. And that kind of really goes along with the Four Agreements. So you may, I mean, I don't know, you may really, really enjoy it. It's a short book, it's a really quick read, but it's another really life changing book.
yeah.
So,
I felt like Four Agreements for me was, just I was on that journey anyway, but that
yeah,
just very good timing as things have come into your life in at the
yeah,
right time, lots of times. Like, and I'm 100% under the mindset of, I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Like, before I would be anxious or where, like this isn't what I thought, or this isn't where I thought I'd be, or how things are supposed to be. And now I'm just happy with where I am and excited for what more is coming. And at 53, and my husband's 10 years older than me. So like our relationship today is better than it's ever been. And I don't know if you know this, but he lives in Florida and I live in California. So we are
oh,
like
wow,
as well. But we just spent a month together. We went to Morocco, we went to Spain, and we just had like a great time with our grandkids. And now he's going to be here next weekend, but we go back and forth. So I travel a lot also with my
yeah.
job and with our relationship to keep the energy going. But it's great because he travels so much for work that if I lived in Florida, I really wouldn't see him much anyway. So it's not like it's that big of a deal, but to other people it's like, oh my gosh, really.
You know, I don't know. I think it depends. I mean, I think some people really need some time. I mean, especially if you're an introvert. You know, one of the things when I talk about being an introvert, people are always surprised because, you know, I'm in front of a camera a lot and I've got the podcast and whatever. But, you know, there are times when I just have to go and do my own thing and don't
Mhm.
talk to me, don't touch me, don't come near me, don't try to kiss me. Just go away and
Mhm.
I will come back when I'm ready. But I have to spend some time being, you know, to recharge.
Yeah. Well, so he's the introvert, I'm the extrovert. However, I live by myself in this cute little apartment, and I love my alone time. So I don't know, like maybe I'm more on the border, but I'm anybody that knows me thinks I'm an extrovert. Like, and I when I say, well, I recharge on my own, they're like, oh, you're so cute. You think you're an introvert, but you're really an extrovert. So whatever.
Yeah, that's funny. So, okay, so what let's hear a little bit more about what happened with Charlene. So when you
Oh,
went to Charlene's when you went
Shalene.
to her conference, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
went to the conference and Michaela was talking, and then Todd was like, maybe we should look into it. So I did a 5-day intensive with Michaela, but
Mhm.
honestly, that was the pivotal position. That was what changed everything for both of us. And like really as I was going through it, and I don't know if this was before or after, but at one point, like him and I were still fighting. Like it was like it got worse before it got better. It brought up a lot of stuff from my history, stuff I had to work through. But after I got through it and after I like was able to go back and just like not have any feelings about like my memory and my thoughts or what I think about now is I'm good. It's good. I feel good. And nothing comes up. There are things I get triggered about, but I am like, I get it. Like I recognize it now. And our relationship, like we were so close to divorcing around 2012, like so close. And we just now celebrate, or February will be our 21st anniversary.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations.
yeah, so we have come a long way together, and our life has changed dramatically since we first started dating. But now our life is amazing. We are open. I'm not afraid to speak I used to be afraid that he'd judge me. I used to be afraid that I just had low self-worth. My self-esteem and my self-worth was so like, and nobody would know because I would fake confident. I would act like I was okay, but I really wasn't
Mhm.
inside. And I didn't really realize I wasn't really
Yeah.
okay until
Yeah.
something would happen and my insecurities would snap in and I would, like put a story together that was so far off and then he'd be like, like, honest to God, I am so grateful that he stuck it out. And after all was said and done, and after our marriage improved, I was like, why did you stay? Like, I put him through so much. I was so mean
Yeah.
to him. And he's like, because I knew you had it in you. And it's just
Oh,
like, oh, good
that's
God.
so special. I mean, we have, menopause and, I don't know if this is happening around the time you had perimenopause and menopause, but, it can be so disruptive when our brains lose our estrogen. And
Mhm,
there's so many women out there who have an issue with, self-confidence and self-worth. And that may be coming from childhood trauma or coming from teenage trauma or coming from young adult trauma. And then
mhm.
it's just as they mature and as their hormones go away, they're like, I don't know what's happening. And then there's this whole like emotional thing of, the mood swings and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of divorce that happens because we don't understand what's happening to ourselves.
And I was talking to him about this morning, just about your podcast and menopause in general. And I was telling him what I had told you yesterday about how I always looked forward to it, because to me it meant I wasn't going to have my period anymore.
Yeah.
Like, yep, I've heard you say that a million times. And ignorance is bliss, I guess, because a lot of the things I might have been going through may have been because of menopause, but because my focus wasn't on this is one of those things that happened to you. I really didn't know. And like I said, my mom didn't have, like, nobody I knew had gone through it. And I think I actually must have gone through it earlier than a lot of my friends that are like, a lot of them are going through it now, and a lot of them are struggling. And I
Yeah.
never but I also at the same time, when him and I were talking this morning, like I was saying, I remember like dry and uncomfortable sex at a period, but I thought
Yeah.
I was not wanting sex. I didn't dawn on me that it was I had not until
Yeah.
this morning when I was having this conversation with him, or yesterday when you said that. I'm like, maybe that is what that was.
It could
But I
be.
didn't know. I didn't know, and I wasn't thinking it, and I didn't dwell on it. So my memory of it lasting long isn't. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So
it's not for some women breeze through menopause, it's sometimes it's really easy, but a lot of women will gain a lot of weight and then they have, a lot of disruption in their thoughts and their sleep and so it's different, there's no one size fits all answer for menopause.
yeah,
But
and
let's
I
let's
yeah.
let's go to like one of the things you just mentioned was, sexuality, and that's one of the things that you help women reconnect with, right?
Or I
So
like
let's
the ones that
let's
are open and willing to, because also in our age group, or my age group, that's sometimes a taboo.
we're close to the same age. I'm a couple years older than you.
Yeah. So I was thinking you were younger than me. So hey,
I'm 55.
go girl.
Woo.
Anyhow, yeah, and it depending on your background or your upbringing, Christian, like certain things are just not talked about. Politics,
Well, let's
religion.
let's talk about America. America, when you look at the 50s in America, or even the founding of America, even though they wanted to have their religious freedom, it was founded by Puritans who
Mhm.
thought sex was evil and only for procreation and didn't see sex as a means of intimacy or a
Right.
means to, kind of keep things going in a relationship or even as a physical, just a
Mhm.
physical kind of release, right?
Mhm.
And so now here we are, 200 and some odd years into the country, and it still has those puritanical kinds of things. And we still don't talk about sexuality, and we still have like the weirdness about abortion and the weirdness about being gay and the weirdness. I mean, there's a lot of sex weirdness in America. So it's not the same everywhere else in the world. America is uniquely like prudish, I think.
Yeah, uniquely prudish. And I used to just think, I'm modest, and I was just a modest person, but at some point you get to where you realize, like, if you don't speak up, like, not, I don't want to, if you don't speak up and just be honest with who you are, and allow yourself to enjoy things that your body was meant to enjoy, then you're missing out on a lot. And you
Yeah.
really, and, during the period of time when my husband and I weren't intimate, or, like I felt like I was obligated because I, cared for him, even though I didn't want to have sex before, and I would say it's painful or whatever. That was a short period of time. But before that, maybe it was just because I didn't look forward to it, or I thought it was more like, I don't know, there was some kind of mental
Yeah,
association.
I mean, I think there's a whole part of whether you want to share your body with someone, because it can be so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you're in a relationship where things are a little tense,
Mhm.
you know, do you want to really be that vulnerable with that person?
I think though also for me is because of the traumas that I had been through, I was also very much like insecure for sure, but just not just I don't know, shamed. I just felt
Yeah,
shameful, you know.
yeah.
And so and then I would use it as, and this is where I would use it as a weapon. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I would hold it, like withhold it from him just to get my way or to prove a point. Or if you came home late, something stupid, you know, like I would just all the bad, all the
Yeah, I
bad.
think it's easy in a relationship to use sex as a currency.
Yes.
And one of the things that we have to do as adults is
Mhm.
to say, well, this is not a currency. This is something that we mutually want to do together because we want to be close. And just to talk about trauma, I mean, I've talked about this before on the podcast, especially with Deirdre Fay. I had like really severe sexual abuse as a child.
Mhm.
And sex has always been like this really confusing thing for me, because it's like it's something I like, but I don't like because it's weird, and it's controlling, and it's power, and so it's a very touchy subject, because we're Americans,
Mhm.
and America doesn't talk about sex really. And then we don't talk about how many children are used as sexual objects for the older men. I mean, they just laugh. I mean, I remember my father laughing about it, the whole Alice in Wonderland thing where, Lewis Carroll was a pedophile and Alice was one of his victims, right? And in real life.
In real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So come here, little girl. And
Yeah.
my dad would say that. And I was like, God, and it was like this okay thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. That's my
Yeah.
experience is different.
Yeah.
But
No, but I'm just saying so there's many ways that you can have dysfunction sexually. Not just, if it doesn't have to be sexual trauma. It can be physical trauma, or it can be emotional trauma. It doesn't have to be. I mean, I'm just talking about my own experience, but, and I'm an open book. I don't care. I'll talk about anything now, but because I've resolved it, it's something that happened to my body, didn't happen to me. I'm okay with who
right.
I
And that's
am. And
where I am now, same. And
yeah,
I will share this because I have resolved this with my mom as well. But at the time, when I was younger, it was one of a couple, or one particular boyfriend of hers had, done some things when I was so young.
yeah.
And when I told my brother immediately. And when my brother told my mom, she didn't believe me. She was
Yeah,
like,
that's true. We were never believed. Yeah. At
she
our,
didn't
at our age.
want to believe. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
like she thought you misunderstood. And so then I was really confused, because I was really young. After I had EMDR, my mom and I had a long conversation, and, our relationship's awesome. I get where I understand all that. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
any animosity towards her. I mean, but at the time like she let this little girl, be with this guy, and he babysit us and stuff, like, so it was, things happen and you have to move on, or you're going to get caught in a negative storytelling cycle that's just going to ruin you. I thought I was fine though. These are things that I had just buried down and became a very high functioning, messed up person. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
well,
Like,
but we're all, it doesn't matter. You don't have to suffer a really, life altering trauma to be a high functioning, messed up person, because you can live in a household that has, really good, the parents have good parenting skills and they understand how to deal with a child that has a meltdown and things like that. And you still get messed up, because that's attachment and detachment. And those are all the things that the psychologists talk about. And so everybody is messed up in some way,
for sure. I mean,
you
you could just
know?
have parents that were perfectionists, and then you thought that then that just, like the house had to be perfectly clean, and
Yeah,
those kinds of things can wreak havoc on a child.
exactly. So,
They
so
don't
there's
even
so much,
develop.
there's so much trauma that, happens. And the thing is that are those traumas going to be the defining moments of your life? And are you going to always be making that, having the past come present, the past come present, the past come present like that, and into the point where that little 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old is the one that's running your life. And now you've got a child running your life. And that was such a revelation for me when I said, I spent a lot of time dealing with my abuse. Trust me. As I realized that, if I blame the abuse on my abusers, then, if I blame my life circumstances on the fact that I had abuse, then I was, giving them all sorts of power and, all those things. Right. And so for me, when I got to the point where I was like, but this thing happened and it's like this defining moment and everything has to come through this filter. Well, then that's the filter of a 5-year-old who doesn't have the experience to say, well, this happened and here's, and let's make, and so we have to really pay attention to the stories that our 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old selves told and make sure that those programmings aren't coming forward. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's like that revelation, that the distinction between understanding the difference between a pain that you experienced back then is not the pain that you're having right now. It's your thoughts about the past that's making it present and bringing that pain to your life right now. And it doesn't have to be that way. The good news is you have control over that. You can choose not to bring that and think that way. You can change your thoughts. You can change your feelings 100%.
Right. So if you're watching the podcast or listening to the podcast and you're thinking that we're full of crap,
oh, it's true.
No, but it's really important to know that both Jill and I have had amazing experiences from learning how to change our thoughts. I used to be this person who was really standoffish, and I called myself prickly. I would push people away because I would, and to some degree, people like me or they don't, and that's because I'm very straightforward. And there's, with me, you always know where you stand. I'm going to tell it like it is. And that's part of maybe my surgeon's personality or whatever, but that's just who I am. So, but what I have learned is that I don't have to control everything anymore. And so through meditation and whatever development, but it's like people who have known me for the last 15 years and see how I act now and how I don't react to things. And I'm like, yeah, okay. It's just, whatever it is. And that is, because of the fact that we've taken the time to look at how we feel about things.
Which you've taken the time to do the thought work is really what it comes down to.
The thought work, the writing.
Yeah. Writing, the thinking.
Yeah.
To recognize what it is that you're thinking is so key, because a circumstance, something that happens is neutral. It's what you think about that circumstance is what generates.
That is so, we teach in the Menopause system, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Who knows? It's a thing.
It's a thing.
And I talk about that. It's just a thing. And we assign meaning to that.
Yeah. So my program officially started last week, but our training starts tomorrow. And so I'm so excited. Yes. Because we're doing a lot of that thoughts, circumstance, your thoughts about the circumstance, which your feelings are generated from, and your feelings drive your actions, and your actions create your results. And you can put anything in this world is either a circumstance, a feeling, a thought, a result, or a action that you've taken. And so it all comes, you can go up or down. If there's a result you want, you work your way back up, or, if there's a situation or feeling that you're having, you think back up to your thoughts, and then you figure out where the disconnect is. And then you have your model of what it is that you do want and what result you want. And you figure out how do I need to act to have this result? Or how do I need to feel to do this action? What do I need to be thinking? Did you have this feeling, to work?
So you basically help people work backwards from the outcome that they want.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of
so it just like we talk about it a lot. We say, here's the outcome. Mm-hmm. You work backwards, you look at it. Okay, what is the process? I love this, because what is the process that I have to go through to get to that outcome? And then all you have to do is focus on the process, because once you focus on the process, the outcome is always going to take care of itself.
Right. And then the other thing key to that is that the only thing that's preventing you from having the result that you want is the thought that you're having and the fear that you're afraid to step into. Because so many times it's an action that needs to be taken that we're afraid to take. And once we realize that fear is just or the sensation of it, the uncomfortable feeling, it's just a feeling. And once you're
Yeah.
okay with getting through that feeling, you're going to live. It's okay, you know, and then you can move on and do the next thing. And, you know, like a lot of the things I also am teaching in my group is confidence. And a lot of people have the misconception that a confident person is somebody who always gets it right. They're confident because they've had so many successes. And I'm like, no, a confident person is confident because they, one, aren't afraid to try. Two, they failed and gotten back up and have, you know, like persevered, you know, and it's
a
not
resilience in the face of failure.
because if you have it easy all the time and then you don't, you crumble, you know, like it's that person doesn't do so well. And honest to God, that for me, that was me. Like I did so well. And then there was this one thing I wanted really bad. And it's the first time I never got what I put my mind out to get. And I will tell you now that I've learned about the law of attraction, the entire time I was going for this thing, in my mind, I didn't believe I could do it. Like everything, like, oh, you got this, Jill, you got this. I was like, oh no, only 1 in 5 make it. And I gave all this evidence of how if I do get it, it's going to be a miracle. And when I didn't, I was devastated.
So can you be a little bit more specific about that particular, can we just tell that story?
So at one point before I moved to California, I had decided I wanted to start teaching accounting. And I needed to get my PhD. I had been out of college for a long time. I had to go back and take the GMAT. And I needed a 600 to get into the School of Accounting there was 5 colleges I was looking at, and they only accept like 5 every 2 years to the accounting program, even though they were having a shortage at the time of accounting professors. To get into the accounting PhD program at a lot of schools was very, very, very competitive.
Yeah.
And so I went in and, you know, I got the bare minimum. I got a 600 on my GMAT, which, you know, they told me that's what I needed. I was just thankful that I got that, but I did not get into any programs. And I got almost into 2 in Florida, but then, you know, stuff happened. And it was right before we went on our Bahama trip. It was right before we went, or during, I guess the last no was when we left for the trip. And I was devastated. I was just like, I had graduated top of my class. I spoke at graduation at college. Like I passed the CPA exam the first time I took it. Like I should have been able to do this. And all of my friends were like, you got this. I had recommendations from my professors. I had a job already lined up at East Carolina University. Everything was good, but I couldn't get into a program. And I just like all of my confidence in myself and my self-value just went down.
Yeah. Yeah. But the universe had another plan for you.
Yeah. And thank you.
Yeah. And this is actually the perfect example of why failure is a door to possibility. Because what we think is the best thing for our lives may not be that. It may be that the best thing for our lives is for us to have a failure and then have to really reevaluate ourselves and make a new choice.
Yeah. And I just like, and let me just back up just one more thing, because I only think I don't usually share this with a lot of people, but I wanted to emphasize how like, I was married before, and my daughter, when she was about 3.5, almost 4, my husband passed away at 24.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's like 25 years ago now.
Yeah, but still,
yeah, no, it was like my life. I was nowhere quick. That was another one of my traumas, right? So that happened. Drugs, like a lot. I was going like really quick in New Jersey. So I moved to North Carolina with my daughter, and I focused on school, and I just kind of like, you know, just put my head down and just like, this is what I'm going to do. And that's why, like, one would think that somebody that has these accomplishments after that, like I had all these, like I was all A's, I was going to do this, I was going to do that. And then I got the job at IBM. I got married ultimately, and like all these things happened. And then I was kind of like, I plateaued of trying. Like I was like, she was my why. I needed to provide for her. And then once I had it, then I was just like coasting, you know, like I stopped learning, I stopped growing, I
Yeah.
stopped reading. And it wasn't until I came, back to California that I started growing again. Like trying to get my PhD was right before we came to California. And like, I don't know, it's just like the way things happen, it's just,
Yeah, I think it's easy though for us. Like for me, I had a similar experience when I completed my residency program. Like I was focused, right? I had to get through residency. And surgical residency is not easy. It's really hard. And it's really hard, especially as a woman, because it's still a man's world, although it's getting better. I mean, it's been, 15 years since I graduated, but when I started my practice, I remember sitting in my office thinking, well, is this all there is? What's next? I'm supposed to be happy now. I'm not happy, you know? And it's the same sort of thing. It's like, where is the happiness going to come from? And what is it? And it took me a good 13 years to realize that the happiness
it's inside out.
isn't from something I do. It's who I have to be. And that is, so key to what you teach. It's key to what I teach. And it's key to anyone who's paying attention to this podcast that, you want to be happy. You have to make a decision to be happy and then be that person.
Yeah. You can't look for external things to bring it in. It's got to come from the inside out. And then when you're happy on the inside, amazingly enough, all these external things start to happen for you as well. But it's really an internal, it generated from inside. It's not.
Yeah, no, it's totally generated from inside. So I want to, how do people get a hold of you?
So they can go to my website at www.jillmromig.com.
Talk a little bit about the affirmations. You do some affirmation work, and I know that you have a nice download for anyone who wants to get it. So can you just talk a little bit about affirmations and how they have changed your life and
Sure.
how they can change the lives of the listeners?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people either give affirmations like the poo-poo, like this, whatever, or they think, oh, well, I've been doing them and they're not working. And I just think there's some things that you need to think about. Like, so my PDF that I have is like the 5 steps to create it and make it your own. And what my advice is, and then it's like 10 of my affirmations that I use. But I think the affirmations can absolutely reaffirm anything positive or any outcome that you have. And it goes along with my thought process that, what you believe is your reality. Like what you think and you believe is what you make happen. So if you have to speak on stage and you think you're going to bomb it, pretty sure you're going to bomb it. And if you think you're going to do really well, pretty sure you're going to do pretty well. It's just like taking the PhD exam, like I didn't think I was going to get it. I didn't get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You will these things to happen, whether you realize it or not. So why not take charge? Why not be at the helm of your life and course correct and affirm the things that you want to have happen in your life. So for me, like some of those steps that I share in the PDF is like, you want to make it positive of what you want to have happen instead of like say, I am healthy, not I'm not sick. You know what I mean? You want to make it in the positive.
Right.
So that's
because the subconscious mind doesn't understand negatives. So you have to tell the subconscious mind that you are going, what you want. Like I am fit and healthy, or I am, I am a millionaire, or whatever it is you want.
Right. Instead of
but just thinking it without action is not going to get you anything.
Yeah.
So not only can you say an affirmation, but you also have to take the action that scares you to get you to the place where you want to be.
Right. For sure that. And two of the other things that I think are important, one is that it's in the present tense, not the future, because then you're always affirming it's going to happen instead of it's happening. So not I will be, but I am.
Yeah, and then that's two for the brain. The brain wants to think in concrete terms. And so if you say I will, then it's abstract and it's not concrete.
Right. And then the other one, when I thought it was where you were headed, but is to actually generate that feeling inside of you. So if you're wanting to feel happy about something, or you do, like, what would a person who is fit and weighs what they want feel like? Imagine what that is while you're doing that affirmation. Like and then feel it. viscerally feel it in your body. And people, if you're listening, you may not understand what I mean, but if you think about like something like gratitude or happiness, if you genuinely think about how you feel when you're happy, you can feel a sensation throughout your body if you allow yourself to recognize that or
Right.
notice.
Yeah.
So,
So it's really important that if you're going to make a change in your life, if you want to make a behavior change or a lifestyle change or anything, that it starts with a thought. It starts with a vibration, and
mhm,
then you have to continue to take action toward that thing that you want. But the only way you're going to continue to take action toward that thing you want is to create a state in yourself so that you are being that person that you want to be.
mhm.
And I know this all sounds very woo woo and whatnot, but you know what? You guys, this stuff works, and anyone who's successful will tell you this.
Yep. Yep.
You
The
know,
woo woo, I'm just like,
I
I'm
know
all
I've
in.
released myself to the woo. Completely surrendered to the woo,
I
because
have,
at the end of the day the woo works. And I meditate about an hour every day, and
now.
yeah, and I study this guy right here. So this is Paramahansa Yogananda, and he wrote a book called Autobiography of a Yogi, and that completely changed my life, because that book talks about how, with the right kind of spiritual principles, through scientific principles of yoga, essentially, anyone can get close to God.
Mhm,
And religion will teach you something different, you know. and
mhm,
and so if you're particularly religious, you may not like this, because religion is, in America, it's primarily Christianity. But this guy here, this Paramahansa Yogananda, he showed me in this book that Christ wasn't the only one. Christ was incredibly enlightened and important. I'm not
mhm.
saying he wasn't important, but wow, it's just yoga.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the real yoga. It's not like the poses. It's
Mhm.
the real yoga.
Yeah. The
So
mental. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's
it's like Kundalini, getting the body, getting the soul out of the body. And I mean, there's a lot of technique to it, but at the end of the day, it's, you don't actually need technique to get in touch with the spiritual and the eternal. You just need
right.
to sit and let it be.
Right. And just connect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Connect to the
so
the
like
eternal.
when I wake up, one of the first things I do is just take a moment and just feel my heart and just kind of feel my source. Like feel I've got God in me. I've got my own,
Yeah,
unique being that's full of energy that wants the best for me. And I just have to reaffirm that in the morning, and I just on the mornings that I know I have to be somewhere and I don't do that, I can tell a difference in the way my day starts.
yeah.
It really makes a difference to just take a minute and just get there. It's
Yeah, I won't get out of bed until I feel grateful for the day. I
yeah.
stay in bed and I just am like, okay, am I going to, what is my emotional domain going to be today? Am I
Yeah.
going to be in gratitude? And I think this is like, we are, and I like to say this, I say this all the time. We are human. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are spiritual beings wearing a suit of skin. And
Mhm.
our job on this earth is to get in touch with the divine.
Yes, for sure. And I just wanted to bring one thing back to sex,
Sure.
a tip um, for those women who want to be with their husband and just don't necessarily feel it. That also that
Or
feeling
partner. We
or
have to go back
partner,
to partner. Yeah.
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 Got a lot of that going on. Anyway, is to genuinely get back here, and then when you get back here into your source energy, and then just think about letting it flow through to your body, you naturally will get your body will get aroused if you just think about being aroused. If you just, it's a way to lubricate your body without having to make your partner do it. You can
Yeah.
stimulate that all in your head. It's totally, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but when we started talking about how you can viscerally feel something, you can mentally stimulate your body if you just start to think about it.
The brain is so powerful, and there is such a huge mind body connection. And when it comes to sexuality, I believe this very strongly, that there's more power in the mind than there is in the body. And
Mhm.
without having some sort of mental understanding, brain understanding, um, there's the whole, thoughts of anticipation and,
Exactly. And
that
that's what
help to
gets
get
the
things.
juices going,
Get
that's the
things
good
going.
stuff.
Yeah. And so that's, and what happens, I think, in a long-term relationship, and this is easy to have happen, is that things can get a little boring, and you got to kind of try to figure out how to spice it up and to, do seduction all over again. I mean,
Mhm.
seduction is so alluring.
Yeah. And the thing for at least a male and a female, I'm just going to say that too, because I'm not going to speak for a male or female, but I know that in that relationship, the male, he wants, that's just in their nature to want to please. And if you don't speak up and say, honey, that's not, like you can direct them with your hand or you can give guidance or whatever, they want that. They prefer to hear that. And lots of times women are like, with their mouth and they're not saying
Right. We're
anything.
not taught to talk about, because we don't really talk about sex. We don't talk about how to express ourselves sexually. We have to like fumble through it and figure it
Yeah,
out.
you humble, you're like,
And
no.
and the other thing is, though, as women,
Mhm,
we have been taught to wait for permission.
mhm,
And we've been taught to wait for permission because we live in a patriarchy. I swear I bring this up every freaking podcast, but it's true. I mean, because we've been, not only have we been taught to wait for permission because of the way we're educated with the
mhm,
bells and all that, but we're taught as women to wait for permission from men.
mhm,
And I want to give you all permission to do whatever it is you want to do. Carte blanche.
mhm.
Carte blanche.
There you
Do whatever you want,
The
and
doctor said, you've got a doctor's note. You got permission.
yeah. So, all right. So how can people get a hold of you?
They can go to my website, which is my full name with my middle initials, JillMRomig.com. That's
That's great.
JILLMROMIG.com.
That's great. And we're going to hook up your download in for the affirmations in the show notes and all the books we talked about today. And Jill, I hope to have you back on the podcast again soon. This is
Thank you.
great.
I really appreciate it. That was awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon, and I wanted to take a moment to share what one of our community members has achieved since she's been working with me. Amanda has had an amazing transformation. Amanda was struggling with joint pain, hot flashes, forgetfulness, sleeplessness, weight gain, and an angry mood. In addition, she lost her confidence and self-worth as menopause crept up on her. Since joining the Menopause Movement membership, Amanda's quality of life has improved in ways no one could have predicted. She has truly transcended the symptoms of menopause and is now living her best life. This is what I want for everyone in the community. Take a listen to Amanda's story. I just want to show you what's possible when you join the community and do the work. Transcendence is available for you too. Now here's Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I am 54 years old and I live in the UK. At this moment in time, I'm in a fairly good place in my life. Recently, I've lost 18 pounds and I feel healthier and more content than I have done in a long time. However, it hasn't always been this way. Back in October 2011, I had an accident which resulted in a serious injury and surgery and subsequently changed my life forever. And over the next few years during my recovery, menopause crept up on me, but I didn't realise what was happening straight away. I started suffering from more joint pain. I went from always being cold to feeling like I was going to internally combust several times a day. I was getting really forgetful, my sleep pattern was terrible, I piled the weight on and looked pregnant, and I felt angry all the time. When things were at their worst, I felt incredibly alone and very down. I lost my confidence and self-worth, and I felt completely misunderstood and confused about what was happening to me. I received very little support or information from my GP, and there was limited information on the internet, but what I really wanted and needed was someone to talk to. The turning point for me was at the beginning of July 2019, when completely by accident, I came across Dr. Michelle Gordon's Facebook page on the Menopause Movement. At that time, she was doing daily live streams and I started listening to them. I related to a lot of what she was saying, and I was really interested in the variety of topics about menopause that she was talking about, the alternative ways to manage menopause symptoms in a more natural way, and how your mindset is the key factor to transforming your life more positively. I was also really interested to listen to the other ladies in the group and what they had to say. Ladies who had been or were still suffering from similar symptoms to me. How a lot of them have been able to manage their symptoms much better, and how they have turned their lives around and embraced menopause instead of treating it like a demon. Although nervous about taking a risk to join a group I didn't know, I knew that I couldn't and didn't want to carry on living my life the way I was and feeling the way I was feeling. So I made a decision that I too wanted to learn more about menopause, how to manage my symptoms better, and most importantly, learn more about my mindset and the fact that I needed help with changing my outlook on life in order for me to get it back. Life is nowhere near perfect, and some days I still have my struggles, but on the whole, I can honestly say that I am in a much better place than I have been for a long time, and for my down days, I understand better how to manage them so they don't get out of hand. I am now on a journey with a fantastic community of like-minded women, all of whom continue to support each other no matter where we all live, and I no longer feel confused, misunderstood, worthless or alone. For me, this group has been both a lifesaver and a life changer, and most importantly, the one-to-one private coaching sessions that are available with Dr. Gordon as part of the membership have been invaluable to me. They provide me with an opportunity to discuss more difficult and private issues that I am struggling with, and an opportunity to find solutions to address them. Without doubt, I can wholeheartedly say that I owe Dr. Gordon and her group everything for showing me how to take my life back and, more importantly, take control of it. Joining her membership has been the best thing that I have ever done. However, this course is not for everyone. If you're looking for a quick fix that doesn't cost you any time, money or effort, then this is not the group for you. But if you're in a similar situation to how I was not that long ago, feeling desperate and at the end of your tether, but are willing to invest in your own future happiness and peace of mind, but are unsure as to what to do, ask questions and talk to Dr. Gordon. And if you choose to take that leap of faith, you won't regret it, because who wouldn't want to take their life back if they had the chance?
If you are feeling like Amanda, you're not alone. There is help for you in the Menopause Movement membership. I want to help you transcend your symptoms and live your best life. To discover how you can become a part of this life-changing community, go to menopausemovement.com.